Going to get started here. Okay, we're going to get started with cloud databases today. Something called Firebase in um, in Google, and use that. Firebase started off to be just um, a single real-time database that's stored in the cloud, and that's what the original word for Firebase was. Um, Google then expanded it to include a whole bunch of services, including user authentication, and then they've since kind of updated their cloud-based service. The original Firebase is now real-time Firebase, it's called, and the new service is called Firestore, which is the recommended database to use out there for storing things in the cloud. They also provide a dozen other services, cloud-based services, that you can use for different things here. It is similar to, I mean, a lot of products have similar things. Let me see if I can get this to run out there, and we'll be looking at it. I'll just warn you, this can get a little complicated, and there's so much stuff in Firestore that we're just covering a small part of it. I'll just tell you in general in this course, that is the case. There's the problem with this course is I always think like in calculus, there's maybe all this calculus, and you're studying a pretty good set of calculus part of the whole, seeing most of the picture. You're missing some things, but seeing much of the picture. In things like this, there is so much stuff for Android development. And in this course, we can only cover a small amount of that. So I always think, at most, we cover like a quarter of what you would really need to do full Android development and know a fair amount about Android development there. So I try to carefully select what to cover in this class so we can create things and do things, but just know that there's a lot of stuff. And so the problem with that is that we will see a lot of stuff and stuff. I always think of it, it's like an exploring adventure game where at times you'll see down the hallway or see down the road and know, oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff down there. We're not going down there. We've got to stay on our little quest, go on our narrow path showing we're just going to do this, 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 and you're going to see all this other stuff. And we're just not going to be able to cover that. Later on, after this class, you can come back and explore those other areas if you want to do more in Android development there. So it gets frustrating sometimes because we will see lots of stuff and not really know how that relates to a lot of Android development there. But that is just the world we're living in. I apologize for that here. So again, some other things that are out there. Amazon AWS has DynamoDB. The other big one is MongoDB that's out there for this. There are other databases out there for this, but those are the two main ones. Azure also has their stuff for this. So what is the whole idea of a cloud database? The idea is that if you're making an app on your phone, you might have hundreds or thousands of people running that app, and they will maybe run it on their phone and their tablet and their computer. They all want to share the same database. So it might be the same user on multiple devices, or it might be multiple users all putting data on there. So, you think of any of your social media apps or any sort of app like that, where you are seeing posts or information that other people will write. If it's reviews of restaurants or just chat messages, anything like that, where you're posting something from your phone, it shows up on someone else's phone. The way we've got to do that is with a cloud database. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So if you go into unit 5 here, I'm going to try to walk through just the little basics of this stuff here. So again, we'll be using Firebase for this. And again, one thing I'll just tell you is that Firebase, I mean, this is from Google, and so just like when you go to AWS or Azure, Google has a lot of resources, but part of it is selling their product too. So they're going to be selling their products. You can see, just note, they're introducing Firebase Studio. We are actually going to spend the last, I think, 4 weeks of this class working with Firebase Studio and how that works. So we'll look at that later on. And that's a uh, AI-based code and app generation package that is kind of built around Firebase here. Um, so again, lots of stuff that this does as far as products for your app here. We can see there, yeah, what this is done. A lot of this is how this integrates with lots of stuff. There's a little video here that introduces Firebase. That's not a bad video that kind of talks about it. It's a little dated, but a lot of that stuff is still there and how we integrate this into our different systems. So let's look at this here. I'm going to start with an app, a basic app without Firebase, and walk through. So that's at the bottom here. I'm going to grab this Firebase starting app. And you're welcome to grab a copy of this too. You don't have to or anything, but it's just an option. So I'm going to. Oh, I bet it's still private because I just created it. Yep. Let me change. I wish I could change it so my repositories were public by default when I create them in Android Studio. Uh, okay, try now. See if that'll work. So this is just a basic app that displays a list of strings to start with and setting that up. So that's what we're going to look at is how this will work here. Okay, they're going back to Firebase while that's loading up. So the basic use of Firebase and Firestore will be like this. And again, this is for the older Firebase reference. We're going to today update this with Firestore. So we'll be looking at this. So again, we're going to create a reference to a database there. And once we have that reference, we can use it to set values in the database and do work with the database there. But in order to get this to work, we've got to configure Firebase within our app. And there's a whole tool for doing that. And we also have to create a Firebase project. So what you first want to do probably is go to the Firebase console and make sure you're set up in Firebase. So I'm going to go to Firebase console here. And I think you might have to enable it. You should be able to log in with your CSS user account and be here. eventually you probably don't have any projects, but we want to be able to create a new Firebase project here for this and set that up. Now there's again, there's two approaches here. One is here and one is in our app, and we'll kind of compare those and try to work with both of them at the same time for this. So again, make sure you can at least log into Firebase and you're enabled. Are you logged in automatically in Firebase these days? Okay, good. So let's go back. I'm going to go back to my app now. Here. And so this is just a simple activity with a list, a recycle view list sort of stuff that I can run. So if I run this on my phone, it'll work. Now, in Visual Android Studio, there are different tools on the right here. But there are additional tools that don't show up here, and we get at those up here in the menu tools here. So go up to the menu and go over to tools actually wait a little bit for this to all be built, I guess. So tools, and we want to go to Firebase. Okay, Firebase should be available here. And that'll run Firebase over here for that. So there are lots of Firebase tools. It starts you in the middle of the list, but you can kind of scroll up and down and see all the different tools here. Common ones that we'll talk about are authentication, having users sign in and not. And we'll talk about both the real-time database and the cloud Firestore here. Another thing that's used a lot is analytics there. So you can, in your app, set it up so that you can tag certain events. When the user does certain things, you can tag them, and it's all stored in Google Analytics. And then your app works just like a website. So I don't know, have you guys used or seen Google Analytics in any? I don't think we do that in any of our classes. I think we used to do marketing on the internet that would do Google Analytics here. But Google Analytics is used to track your website and users there. So you can bring up these nice reports that show like users by location or by country, and then what pages they've both visited on your website and how long they've been at certain pages. And you can have the same thing for your apps there. So, okay, but we're going to go down to Cloud Firestore here. It gets, I don't know what this interface is right now, but I'm going to just expand it and it's better here. And there's two versions. Well, the first one is by default Kotlin. The second one is Java. So this is Tuesday, so we're going to do the Java version. So I'm going to click on that for that here. And I find it easier to work within Android Studio first and get it set up there. So I'm going to minimize it. So here my app is up. Here's what our app does. I can create items and add them to the list here. That's all it does, is a list of items for this. Okay, so here on my Cloud Firestore, I'm going to connect this to Firebase as the first thing. So it'll launch the Firebase console for us here and set us up. So it's launching that, connecting it. So again, we have to then either select or create a project here. I'm going to create a new project for this. Sometimes, like later on, we'll do a list of parks and information about local regional parks that you can hike at or go to. But now I'm just going to create a new Firebase project, give it some name. Actually, that's not a bad name, so I'm just going to start with that name, I guess, here, and just hit continue. So again, you could have created this originally and been ready in Firebase console, but again, if you go here and you just create the project or connect it, it will do that. Now this is what you're going to enable. For now, we don't need Google Analytics. That adds a little complexity or don't need to do right now. So I'm just going to disable that box. If you keep it enabled, that's fine. It's just an extra thing there. We're going to create this project for us. And again, if you watch certain tutorials, some people will go and do all this in Firebase Console and then connect it up to the Firebase to Android Studio afterwards. I prefer to start with Android Studio and have it jump over to Console. So, okay, here my project ready. I'm going to hit OK. Here's my product. Okay, and we're going to connect it to the app in Firebase. So it says is connected here. One of the things what this has largely done here is downloaded a file, I believe. I'm going to switch to the project view here. So there's a new file here, googleservices.json, which lists a lot of the configuration for this project in Firebase. So the fact that this file is here means they're connected. I get into trouble because I often do these sample projects and put this file is put here by default. And if I give it to you, your app is trying to connect to my Firebase project with my Firebase IDs, and we run into some problems. So I'll tend to remove this file, but this is the file that is saved and connects your project to. So when it says your project's connected, what that often means is that this Google services.json file has been downloaded and saved in your project here. So also in a lot of the tutorials, they'll tell you you have to do that, and this process does this automatically. So now I'm going to go back to my other window, which has Firebase Console here. I'm going to refresh this. So there should be a new list, a new project here. You might just have one project here. I'm going to click on that so I can have that project open here. Okay. So we've connected our Firebase project, our app to a Firebase project here. It's downloaded that file for us automatically. We're going to add Cloud Firestore to your app here. So I'm going to click here. This is going to update the build.gradle files with the right libraries. So just telling you it's going to update these libraries here, and we're going to accept that for this. So next, we're going to want to do some code here for initializing it, and it'll provide us some sample code for initializing the database here. So step 3 here, and again, I like this. I use this a lot. You edit tools, Firebase, and you can just select which of the Firebase products you're going to walk through, and you're going to do your code. Where am I going to do this code? I'm going to just again, this is just a main activity. Later on, we will do this like in a view model or in a database repository or something like that. But here we just have a single main activity. I guess we do have a view model, but I'm going to do it in the main activity for now here. So I'm just going to, after I set up my view model, I'm just going to call a method called setup Firebase. And I'm going to define a private void Firebase function. And I'm going to start putting the code in here. So now my main activity will call setup Firebase, and we'll put it here. And again, eventually we'll look at moving this into our view model or somewhere like that. But I'm just going to keep it here for now. It's the very simplest stuff. So again, first thing we need to do is create a Firestore object here. Let's see if I can get this over a little bit more. So again, although I imported the libraries, I haven't done my imports up here for this. There's no imports for Firebase here. They will work now that the libraries are ready, but I do have to do the actual imports here. So I'm going to import this class. So that will add this import up above for this. And let's try to write an object to the database for this. I'm going to, well, I'm going to create this whole thing. And put this over here for now. And let's just see if we can get this this to work. It creates a hash map of a user here and creates this. Eventually, we're going to get rid of this hash map. But again, since this is the sample documentation, I'm just going to start with this stuff. So I have to import hash map. I have to import document reference. When it's doing tags or logs, it puts this tag there, and that's just a string. Let's just replace that tag with like CIS 33, 34, something that we'll know is our log here. So I'm just going to replace that tag. Often in companies, what you'll have is you'll have a global or variable for this tag, so you use it consistently throughout everything. So and import this, import that, import that. Which of these, and in general, you want the Android X version of most of these things or the Compose. So if it asks you which you want to import, you almost always want to import Android X or a Compose rather than a generic Java version of this stuff. So this will set up Firebase and also try to add something. Okay, so again, I'm just trying to grab the code from over here to the database. So let's try to see if we can run this with our database and what it's going to be setting up and see what it does. I'm going to reload this on my phone. And again, this should, as soon as I load this up, it should run this. So let's just see if it, so what was this? I think just there. It's not that one. It looked like it didn't oh no, it is still running it. So it is still waiting to run this. We'll see, my phone should be refreshed when this runs quickly. So I can kind of watch the build menu is probably building away here for this. So I can just watch the build process go if I want to. Now, let's go to the Firebase console and prep for the error that's going to happen. So in Firebase console, so I've gone to the Firebase console. I'm gone into the project I created for this. So here's my project there, and here's my project overview. But I haven't implemented anything. For example, I haven't told it that I'm going to use this Firestore and that I should configure that. So this will, when I in my code here, oops, okay, in my code here, when I'm doing a Firestore get instance, this is going to actually probably fail or return a null DB. so that when I use that to add a collection, I'm not doing any error checking here. This will fail because the database will be null because I haven't gotten in the console and told it, get ready, I'm going to be using Firestore because there's so many pack or tools out there. It doesn't enable every one for us here. So let's see. So if I go in my log, I should see that message. See a bunch of red things here. Failed to get service from broker, unknown package, Android GMS here. So I don't know. I think that's probably my error. And again, I'm not doing very good checking here in their code. They don't do very much in way of checking for this to work. So I should be checking like if this fails or whatever, but I know that is going to fail. So let's talk about why. I'm going to go back into console here. And we've got to enable Firebase here. So again, Firestore. There are different categories of objects. Just click on Build, go down to Firestore Database under Build. And this will bring up the Firestore settings. Okay, and it says, yes, and it should, you probably don't have any databases in this project here. So again, I can watch about it. I can look this up. I'm just going to say create a database. So create a database. You're just going to make sure you use standard edition. You don't want to get charged for this stuff. So I'm just going to use standard edition here. The location defaults to the United States. That's fine. You can just leave that. So 1, I just said next. 2, I said next. And 3, you do have to set this to test mode. By default, you would only allow authenticated users to access your database and stuff like that. Well, we aren't authenticating users yet, so we'll allow anyone. Now, this is a pretty big security breach. So in your real app, you'd change this, but there are stuff, and it only was going to set it up for the next 30 days by default. So in the next 30 days for this until October 10th, and you could change this if you wanted, but right now this rule is set up. So next 30 days, it'll be in test mode. So the last, again, configure, switch the last one to test mode, and then create this. So this should set up our database with our rules. And we'll see now, and you'll see on the left side, Firestore database is one of the shortcuts that are available here, and it'll do this. Now, eventually, we'll start seeing there isn't a collection here. Collections are like tables. So here's the question. Have you done, so you probably are in or have taken database modeling. So you're used to SQL with tables and stuff. How far are you in, who's taking database modeling now? How far are you? Are you creating tables in SQL, or are you still doing diagrams and stuff like that? But you've talked about what a table is? Yeah. Okay. So again, in SQL, we would create tables, and inside tables, we'd have fields. Now, in non-SQL, we have, and again, it's slightly different from product to product, but we have like documents or collections or stuff like that, which is like the database, and then there'll be, or table, and there'll be stuff underneath that. Okay, but okay, I'm going to leave this now that I have it enabled, and I'm going to go over here and try to run this again. For this. Okay, let's quit this. Try to rerun this. Okay, so now mine ran successfully. If I look under my log, Where's my logs here? I shouldn't see those big red errors anymore. I think everything's working better. Uh, and so, but nothing shows up on my app. Here it just has this still. But let's see what was written to this. If I go over to the Firebase console and hit refresh here, uh, it under collections, it created a user collection, and I see a user. I actually see two users. It looks like it created two users here. Again, this is, and I can click on them to see that. So we have a collection, and then we have documents, and then we have fields. So in my mind, if you're thinking SQL, collection would be like a table. Documents would be like rows in your table, actual, items in your table. And then these are the fields. So we basically created the user table here, and we have two users entered. That we actually duplicated the two users. Each one has a unique ID, and then we have when they're born, their first name and last name for that. So let's look over here to see how this works. That's what this does. I'm going to, I think because I've run this a couple times, that's probably what's adding it to the database. Okay, I'm going to move this code here. Well, let's do, I have in my app, I have a post button here. I'm going to move some of this code so when I hit post, it will do it. So I'll set up my database here for this, but then I want to be able to access it with the post button here. So I have an on-click event when my button posts. I want to do some stuff there. So I'm going to break up this. I'm going to change the setup data Firebase here. Let's see. For now, we'll just call that not from here, but not from our main activity, but we'll call it only when we hit the post button. So I'll call setup Firebase there. So only when I hit the button will this run. And let's change this. Let's see if I can add me to the list this time. So now if I rerun this, it'll only run it when I hit the post button. Now, in reality, we're setting up Firebase. We probably want to do two things. We want probably a Firebase setup method that will instantiate and set up this database connection. And then we'll just want to use that when we add items to it. So we want to not reset up the connection each time necessarily. So let's see if I run my app now. It doesn't matter what I type in here, but if I hit the post button, it should be sending that to my database. So let's see now if I run, I didn't even have to hit refresh. If I look in here, it added Tom Gibbons to the list over here. So let's try to see what this is doing here. I'm going to try to clean this up a lot here. I'm going to get rid of this map. Again, this was the code they were. I'm just going to create the database here, and I'm just going to add a string, hello, Firebase. Now, in the collections, I'm going to change it from users to something else. So again, this will be like a different table name. I'm going to call it messages. So basically what this does, I create my database, I go database.collection, and I specify, again, think of this like a table name, messages, and I'm going to add this stuff. I'm going to see if I can just get rid of the add listener and stuff for now. get this back. Because I think the add listener stuff is, I'm going to actually put this all on one line there. So we're going to kind of bring this down to the minimal stuff. So database, create our database, do our database.collections.messages.hello Firebase, rerun our app, and see what it does. So what we expect it to do is create a new collection over here besides users called messages. And then one of the messages should be hello Firebase when I push my button. So here's my app. I'm gonna move this off to the side so hopefully I can see the live update here. Again, right now I'm not doing any text. Eventually we should probably write this text as our message, but now I'm just gonna write that here. Oops, and it looks like I crashed. See. Oops, I'm gonna get rid of this, I think. See if that. I removed the package, so I'm seeing everything from every message, log message from my phone, which is lots of stuff here, but I'm not seeing the crash. Let's run this again and see if I can see the crash here. Okay, clean this up. Go to my app. Here's my crash. Okay, so it wants a map here. Must be an object, a map suitable for this sort of stuff. So I do need some sort of map to write this. I can't write this text directly here. So let's just create a simple map for this stuff. Now, eventually, if we have objects, if we create an object, Firebase, we can write that object to there and it'll set that up correctly for us. It'll create a map for us generally automatically. But let's do this. So let's look back. So again, if I look back at the map that was originally created here, I'm just going to take a little bit of that. So I'm going to just make a simple hash map and the text. What basically we're doing with the hash map is defining the field names and the values in our fields for that we're going to want to store in the database. So I'm going to have a field name called message text, and the value is going to be hello Firebase. So I've created a message for that, and now I'm going to just add that message to my database. So now in my documentation here, it used to be with, again, this was using Firebase, the old version, not Firestore, the new version. So it used to be you could do something, you could write these values directly like this. Let me update this code while we're doing this. Sorry, I updated a bunch of stuff and I forgot I didn't update this particular stuff here. So Um, so when we tried to just write like something like this, that is not going to work here. We're going to have to use this hash map here and do that. So, okay. I'm going to rerun this app and see if that works. Whoops. Okay, now let's run Firebase. Our app is now running. We're gonna post something here. Oh, and now it should. Maybe it's every time a new collection is made, you have to refresh in Firebase. So I might have to hit refresh over here, and I should see my new. So I've got my new collection called messages. There's a new message here, and it's called Hello Firebase for this. So now I'm writing messages to the cloud here from my app, but I'm always writing this. Let's say we want to pass the text from the item here. So I'm going to get the text from this. So rather than putting in the hello Firebase here, I'm just going to put in the text from my edit text object. So whatever I type in the text field, that'll be the text from this here. So now I should be able to hit refresh. We should be able to go here, wait for my app to run, bring that up. And now if I type in another message, hit post, we'll see it added to the message. If I move this out of the way, we'll see it added right away. And I don't have to, now that I have that collection set up, I don't have to hit refresh. And it should update it relatively fast. So if I hit message here, watch how quickly the new document is created here. So I've hit post, and then boom, it's already created there. So it's relatively fast. Now, the real-time one is a little faster if you're doing more real, very fast interactions. But again, this is under a second general posts to the database. So again, if I want to paste like, hello, this is my fourth message. I can hit post. And again, it quickly saves it here. Now, one thing to note is that the order of these messages is kind of random in this. Here's like my message 2 is the top message. The fourth message is the next one. So I can get them in order, but again, the ordering here is somewhat arbitrary for this in this database, the way it's set up. Let's try to write let's see, an object to Firestore here and do that. Let's just do, maybe we'll leave with messages for now. Yeah. No, I guess I want to, let's do an object and do that. So we're just going to make a simple object for a message here. I'm going to need a new class for a message, at the GitHub. And yeah, I'm going to have a string for the message text here. I'm actually going to be very lazy, I think, and I'm just going to make this public. So I can read and write that string directly without a getter and setter for now. Okay, see how that works. So now over here in Firebase setup, rather than creating this hash map and putting things in here, let's see if I can just create a message here. So, oops, I made my message lowercase. I'm going to change that. I always want my classes to be uppercase. Sorry about that. Okay, that sounds better. Okay, I'm going to have a message, mess equals new message, and we'll put in some message text. Oh, I don't have a constructor, it looks like, right? I never created a constructor, so I probably want to create a constructor over here. I'm just going to do generate constructor, hit that. Okay. Now I should have a constructor available for that. And then in main activity, I should be calling that constructor. And then I want to pass this message to Firestore that way. I'm just going to create a new message and pass it. Now, the question is Firestore smart enough to look through this and say, and do the map itself, create a string called message text as the thing. So if I look at my Firebase console here, there's a field called message underscore text, and that's where the message is. Is Firestore going to be smart enough to do that, to store this object and create the map for me? And I'm telling you, I hope it is. So, okay, we'll rerun this. So again, notice that I have in this process hard-coded the message to be hello there here. So I'm not actually using what's in the edit text field for now. I'll fix that in a sec. Okay, so we ran this. It doesn't matter what I type in here. I'll hit post message. And it should have created the newest message there. Hello, Firebase. I think that was the newest message that it created there. Is that what I was saving? Yeah. Oh, no, it was hello there. That's what. Yeah, it was that one. Hello there. Is that my message? So it did create that. Of course, I want to actually use the edit text field. So I'm going to grab the edit text field here and use that in my constructor. So when I call my constructor, I'm going to pass in the information from my edit text field here, create a new message, and then pass that message to the database. Rerun this. Okay, here's my document, my new message, message 5, post that message. Here, it'll pop up on my list here. Here's message 5 was created and posted for that. So again, this is what we need to set up our Firebase. We need to just create our database, instantiate our database, and create an object that we want to store to the database, and we add that to the database, and we say database.collections, and this is the name of the database or the table or the collection, and this is we're adding this. No, there is a way where you can also add a layer so that the user ID is included in this, so that you would add the user's ID in here also, so that right now all of them, everyone is just posting this, and it is possible to work with the user ID once we get authenticated, because that would be crucial, that you'd want to maybe just get that user's messages, or at least know which user created that. But we're not going to go over that right now in this example. Now if I quit my app, and just run it again here, it forgets everything because although I'm saving the things to Firebase, I'm not loading everything from Firebase here. I just have a local database here and I'm storing things in there. So how would I get the messages from Firebase and put them in here? So that's our next task for this. So again, I'm in my Firebase thing over here. It talks about adding the collection. The next section, reading the collection for this, we can add this. So I'm going to grab this code and bring it over here. I'm going to add another method, I think, for that. So I private void load Firebase. And I'm going to load in my stuff. Now, I'm going to, for now, just duplicate my Firebase get instance here. Again, I should really just be doing this once when my app starts. I should actually be doing it in my view model and just keeping it there. So I just set up my Firebase instance once, but that's not one. I'm just to keep it simple. And the initial one, I'm doing it here. Do a bunch of imports here. And in my tag, I'm just going to use the string like CIS 3334 or something like that as my tag for this. So what we're going to do here is, and we're going to call load Firebase. I'm going to call that from my my main activity. When I get started here, we're just going to call load Firebase. So we'll do this. Now, what does that do? Again, I need a Firebase instance, so I'm creating one here. Once I have that DB, I'm going to go to collections and I'm going to be listening to a certain, this is like listening to a certain table. So I'm going to listen to a certain table over here. I have the users table and the messages table. I'm actually going to want to listen to the messages table. So I'm going to change this to messages. I'm going to be listening to that table here. I'm going to get, that will get what is called a snapshot of the data, a copy of the data, updated copy of it. And then I'm going to add a listener so that this is done asynchronously. It takes a while. So this is the code that we run later on when that snapshot comes back here. So when it comes back on complete, will be run here. I'll check if this was successful. I'm going to do this. Otherwise, I'm just going to log an error for this. And so I will be given a query snapshot, the document here. What I'm actually, I guess, given is a task result. From that task result, I'm going to get my document here for that. And that should be my list of items here for this. And so I'm going to want to add those items to my, so where's my list here? If I look in here, I don't have a list. I have a model view here, and I have a set of, my item list is in my model view there, but I can add items to that model view. So I'm going to, let's just see if I can bring in AI to do this for us. So okay, so I'm going to have AI in load Firebase. I want to loop through the messages in the snapshot and add them to the model view using add, what is it called? Add item. I always forget in each of these different languages and stuff how to snapshots. This sort of stuff is very common. You almost always get some sort of snapshot and you have to loop through it. I always forget in the different environments, and I've just been using React so much lately. I'm just thinking React stuff. So I'm just going to do this and stuff. Yeah. Okay. So it gave me all this stuff. I'm just going to go into the load database. If successful, here's its loop for this. So I'm just going to go through this loop and copy that one. That's all I want is that one piece of code here. So again, in my loop here, I'm logging something here. I'm also going to just loop through. So I have my document here. Oops, I think I already have this query in here, don't I? So I'm already looping through each document. So again, each document is it's looping through each one of these documents in the snapshot. So each one of those, I'm getting the document. I can get the document ID. I'm going to convert each document to a message class because that's where I used to write it out there. So I'm going to use this to convert the message class, and I'm going to get the message. It is thinking like, obviously, I should have a getter called get message text. I don't because I was lazy. I just made it public here. So I can just get the message text directly here. So I can just say, not call the get, or maybe it would be better for me just to add a getter. It's not that hard. But I'm just going to write that here. Now, I'm going to get rid of this one for now and see if I need that. Okay, so I'm just going to tell the view model to add each message text to it. So now if I run this, hopefully it'll generate this when I start. Okay, but it crashed, did something wrong there. So let's look in my log. Oops, I need my log. I really struggle with doing coding on a single screen. I'm so spoiled. You can see why having at least two screens when you're doing this, so I can have my log up on one screen and stuff like that. It's hard in this lab to do coding. Okay. Here's my problem. Could not deserialize an object here. Message does not define a no argument constructor here. And you need that. Okay, so you know what deserialize is? So again, that is this process, right, of converting objects or converting things into objects from text to objects back and forth. It's kind of like when you're converting like things to JSON, an object to a JSON thing, you will serialize it into JSON or deserialize it from JSON or something like that. And again, this is actually, I mean, if you look at this, this is actually JSON that's being stored out there. Here, everything has a tag and then a value. You can see this obviously. So again, we could not deserialize this. So here, where I said the document, convert that document to an object with a message class, it wants an empty constructor here for this. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to say generate a constructor with nothing here and generate a blank constructor. I often like to put a message in here. So blank constructor, yeah, needed for Firebase. Put that in there. Because again, otherwise I'll later on say this is not used anywhere and I'll just delete it when I'm cleaning up my code. So I'm just going to put in that it is needed. Well, okay. Okay, so now we'll try to run this again and see how it works. I'm going to clean up my logs here. Bring up my Firebase. Where's my app? Okay, so it hasn't crashed, but it also did not display my list. It should have started with a list of items. So let's see how it's doing here for that. So I'm not sure what it's doing here. So again, it's processing the text. You can see it's looping through each message text, message text. So here it's getting all my messages. So it is processing it all from that. But it is not computing these. Okay, yeah. So let's go. So it's not showing up on my list. Yeah. I often think, oh, I'm going to delete this and add it in later to show you why it's necessary. And I delete it, and then I forget I deleted it, and it doesn't work. Okay, so here's why it's not working. Let's just try to add one message here. Test. Again, I'm going to add this message to the list. When I add that one message, all of a sudden all my messages are there. So and I look at my log here, and all the messages were read in originally for this. So why weren't they displayed? So what has commonly happened is that I read in all my messages here, and somehow the UI did not get updated with those messages here. Now, if I have this set up for like live data so that hopefully when I update my view model, then it will update, this will be listening to my view model. But again, I tried to keep this very simple. So there isn't a live data view model, automatic update sort of stuff here. So I have to actually tell the UI to refresh the screen. And that's what this one bit of code, which I actually took out earlier to illustrate this line here does, is after I update, where's my, load all my data here, I want to tell the recycle view to refresh. Notify the recycle viewer that the data has been changed, so it will redraw the recycle viewer for this. So now if I do this, first I stop my app so it's not running, I run it again. When it runs, it will load up all my data and update the recycle view correctly. So now if I add new data, it should put it in the list here now. If I add new data, let's see how that. So let's add that message. And we'll hit post and it'll add it to the list. So again, this is adding it to Firebase. It's listening for the results. When the results come back, it's adding it to the list here. And it does it relatively, I mean, that is relatively fast, I think, you know. Okay, hit post and it's there. So again, that's all putting it up into the cloud-based Firebase, getting it, listening for it, the results come back and putting it here. So how'd that go today so far? Ready to do so that was the simplified version of this one. Okay, so we're gonna look at a more complicated, fuller version of this next here. Okay, so that's I'm gonna leave my Firebase console open for now. I have to update that code in this before. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the learning activity. And we're going to look at a fuller app and try to put some Firebase inside this app here. We're going to try to do it in two parts. I think today we're just going to try to do the database part of it. And then for the assignment, we're going to do it with authentication. Let me rephrase that. We're going to try to do it in the learning activity with the data. Authentication is kind of complicated. So I'm going to give you the version that has authentication set up and ask you questions about it there. I also will give you, your version will start blank and you can add authentication to it if you want, but I'll also give you a version that has authentication in it and set up for it, okay? So that'll be our plan for this. So I'm going to go into this Firebase Java version of it, accept the assignment, get the URL, go over here and open this up. New project for version control. I'm going to open it up in a new window so I can see some of the code I did with the previous version of this while I'm working on this. So and we'll let that build for a little bit. So, yes. The first part we need to do, I think, I don't have that set up, is to connect Firebase to your project. Run the Firebase tool from Android Studio and create a new Firebase project for this app. Okay, so my app's working now. So again, just so you know, this is what it is. It's got, well, let's just run this app to, so this app is tracking some parks around town, like state parks or places you might want to visit, and reviews for parks, city parks, that sort of stuff. That's what I decided to do. I'll just tell you, the old app from last time was fishing and fish locators, and I did not have very much excitement from class about a fishing app. I was very disappointed that we weren't all excited about a fishing app, because to me that would be very useful. But so I'll just tell you, we went with parks as somewhere in between. Okay, so that's what we're doing, parks. Okay, so we have a park. We have a user here. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The JSON file is missing. That makes sense. Okay. I guess we can't run this. Um, so we have a data folder, and inside we have our data models, our park here, information about our park. So we have that. We have our UI. We have a screen for adding a park, a screen for listing a park, or all the parks, and a detailed screen for listing a particular park here. So we have all that. We have, for logging in, we have a login fragment and a sign up fragment. This is all done using fragments. When we move over to Kotlin on Thursday, it'll all be done with components there. So that's how it's kind of set up here. Navigation, we have a navigation system set up. In our view model, we're going to have two view models, a park view model, which is going to have a list of parks here. So here's our list of parks here. The auth view model is going to be for authentication, and that's where we're going to keep track of the user and how that is. And then main activity then coordinates all this stuff. So this is kind of how our app is set up. So we're going to want to tie this into Firebase. So again, go up to your menu, tools, Firebase. We want to, let's do the Cloud Firestore and Java, the Cloud Firestore Java one. We want to connect this to our database. So again, this is where you'll want to start a new project. I'm actually have an existing Park Firebase project that I've been running this against. So I'm just going to choose that one. Here, let's start this just so you remind yourself. If you create, you give it a name, you continue. And again, the only thing you want, you don't need an analytics enabled there. Well, let's see. Let's do Java. So in class park list. Okay. So yeah, I don't need the Google Analytics enabled. We prepare that park. So this. And again, like when we do Kotlin, we can use the same project so we can reconnect this up to that project. So you just need one one of these cloud projects generally, and then all your apps will return to it. Okay, your app is ready and ready. So I guess it was just that one thing there. For some reason, oh yeah, it tends to hang. Okay, here we're going to connect it there, and so now it should have downloaded our JSON file. So if I go to my other view here, my app folder is the new Google services.json file. And again, it was complaining that was missing when I tried to run it before. So that should be run. I don't know anywhere to get from here. I always have to close this localhost window and go back to the console here. Okay, so we've got that. Add your SDK. You can do that. Your app actually has that already added in there because I had this all set up in your app at one point already. And then we can start about doing the code here. Let's try to run this app. I think now that you have this enabled, you can run this app here. So okay, if I run this app, oops, it didn't run. Oh, yeah, because I've already installed it, so it's going to delete it and rerun it on my phone. Just a sec. Now, so here's my app. The login doesn't do anything, so you can just type in anything for the login and hit login. It's just going to do that. Eventually, we'll enable that. And it just, again, this is our list of parks here. We can click on a park to display information about it. We can go back to the main list. We can add a park. This is our add park list. We can add a park. Park one. Okay, and I can save that park, it'll add it to the list. So what it does is it adds it to the view model. The view model has live data set up so that it updates the UI runs. So all that stuff is set up in here for us, but it doesn't store this in Firebase. Where are these parks stored, you say? Well, if I go in my view model, I'll switch this to Android. Okay, go to my view models and go to my park view model. I'll see in my constructor, I just create these parks by default. So I just create the parks and put them in the list manually or hard coded for that. Okay, so let's go back here. Eventually we're gonna need Firestore in our project. So why don't we just enable it right away? Otherwise we'll get that error and it'll bother us. So just go in here, to Fire. I'm in the wrong project, I think. I've got to go back to Firebase, find my project, and refresh this list. Here, this is my new park list. That's where I want to go. I'm going to go to Build and find Firestore database. Look, there are no databases to list, so I'm going to create a database, standard edition, US, and switch that to test mode. That's the one thing I have to remember. Switch it to test mode and hit create, and then you'll be set for Firestore. Consider also enable authentication. I'm such a bad speller that often autocorrect can't even figure out what I'm trying to spell. That's how bad I am at spelling. I think that's a good so okay, try that. Okay, so while we're here, why don't we just enable that? So I'm going to go back to my project overview. I'm going to go to build and enable authentication here. I'm going to get started. We're only going to do one type of authentication, email password authentication. So again, I'm going to click on email password. I'm going to enable it and then hit save. So again, there are lots of other providers. They require some setup as far as security and stuff like that, SSH stuff that isn't that hard to do, but again, we're trying to keep it simple. So the simplest thing to do is just do email password. So I've just clicked on that and hit enable for that. So yeah, that is enabled. So again, I just made sure I enabled the top one, not the bottom one, just the top one. Okay, so now authentication is ready to go for later also. Okay, oops, go back to our project. Okay, so I've done that. Now I'm going to want to set up my code for fetching projects. Let's look at how that works. How much time do we have left? Yeah, not that long. Okay, so in my app under data, there's a Firebase package, and in there is Firebase services, and it's all empty. So this is what we want to start implementing here for this. So I'm going to want to start doing this here. And again, there is code over here for how to do this. I can start doing things like set up my Firebase storage here and doing that. And I can start pasting this code in here and working with that. AI does a pretty good job at like doing a basic Firebase service here also if you want and setting that up so you can decide how it, but we're going to need a Firebase, a Firestore database for this. And again, AI is automatically going, well, don't you need it on an add park method here? So, and again, that is part two, is to do an add park one. I want to do a load park here. So I want to add in for our Fireby services, I want to add something like fetch parks that will do things. So I'm going to change this to create a new private void fetch parks. And again, it's suggesting now that it knows I have a database, the first thing you want to do is do db collection.get there, and that sounds pretty good to start. And again, what when we want to call our table or our collection in our things, I'm just going to call it parks. I think this is what it's calling it there, is parks. Use this method to query Firestore collection, return a data collection to parks. You'll iterate through this document and convert each one into a park object, update the view model with your park object here. So I want to get my view model and update that. So if I look at my view model, there's a load parks here, which will load in all my parks. So I want to actually do that. And then I have add park to list here. So I can actually maybe in load parks, I'll call, did I word this right? Yeah, so eventually you want to pass the list of parks back to the park view model for this. So initially you'd think, okay, here in my view model, load parks, I would call my Firebase service, and I call fetch parks there, for example, in my Firebase service, and do it that way. And somehow integrate these two together for this. And then maybe this would return a list of parks here. So in my Firebase server here, rather than having this void, I might want this to be a list of parks. Let's see, I'm trying to remember what exactly what we have. Yeah, we have a list of park up here. So maybe I want to have it return a list of parks here and build that list as we go. And then in the park view model, we would call fetch parks, and we'd actually just maybe put it right in here where we're setting our values. Rather than creating a new array list, we could just say fetch the parks from our Firebase service here. So you could kind of think of doing it that way initially for that. So we get our collection here and we return it to our parks here. The problem we have with this is that this is going to be running asynchronously for this stuff. So when we call get, we're eventually going to get a query snapshot for this. But that should be okay. We just have to be aware that some of this is going to be happening asynchronously. So again, I'm going to look back at my code in my other project that we started with here. So how did we do that? We did .get, and we added this add complete listener code here. So I'm going to actually grab that from that other project and put it in here. I'm wondering if I just hit, yeah, okay, if I just hit .add, it is actually going to fill in that stuff for me. Oops. Uh, okay, well, let's just do this part. So, um, again, if you're not pasting it in here, if you just like do dot add, it'll add the complete listener in here for us. We check if we're given a task, we check if the task is successful, and then we loop through each document in our task results here to do that result. Again, I'm going to paste in this what we had from the other one and look at that. So we add a complete listener. On complete, we are given a task. If the task is successful, we're querying, we're going through our documents here, and we are logging them here, the ID for each one. And here we created a message. So we don't need to create a message here. We want to create a park. With the park class. Oops. Okay. And again, we want to somehow add that to our item, our view model. We want to let it know that we have that. So right now we don't have a tie between these two, so we'll want to do that. But we want to somehow pass the park back to the view model, or the list of parks back to the view model here. And we don't have to do this update recycle view because we have live data. As long as the view model gets updated, the UI will get updated. So again, this is one thing, if we have this set up well, I shouldn't have to touch the UI or worry about the UI at all here. I should just be working with the view model and the data, the Firebase data. All the UI has been tested and run. So I know if the view model gets updated, the UI gets updated. So I shouldn't have to worry at all about that for this. So, okay, so how do we want our view model and our park to be tied together here? I'm going to go back in a commit. I'm going to go back to this commit. I'm going to browse. So I've already done this. I don't remember exactly how I did this. So I'm just going back in time. I'd undone some of this stuff. So I'm just going to have to look back and remember here. So if I look at this view model, what it did is it created a Firebase service here. So we already have our view model. I'm going to create a Firebase service here. And once I have that, I'm going to instantiate it in the constructor, and then I'm going to call fetch parks here in my view model for this stuff. So I'm going to in my view model, I'm going to oops, that's the wrong one here. In this view model, in my park view model, I need to tie it into my Firebase service here. So I'm going to, with my other data here, I just need a private fine, yeah, okay, Firebase server, that's all looks good here. for this. So I'm just going to create a Firebase service for us to use here. And then in load parks, I can call that Firebase service. For this. Now, I have some problems because, again, well, here, what I want to do is just call the Firebase service, call fetch parks, have it return a list of things. But again, it doesn't return a list of things. It works asynchronously. So it will get a list, but not right away here. So it can't return a list of parks here. It'll return a void, and I'll just return, because asynchronously, it's going to go out and do it. And eventually this onComplete method will be called for us to run and update here. So in onComplete, I could have it then call my item view model back, but I need to know what the item view model is for this stuff. What I can do is I can provide a method here to call instead of this. So I can provide a method in my view model that it will call when this is done, when onComplete is done here. I can call a method here. So that's what I can do, is set that up. So I'm going to see if I can talk about how this is. So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call it with this code here. And let's show you. So I'm going to go in my view model. I'm going to, again, I'm not going to call this on its own. I'm going to call Firebase service.fetchPark. And I'm going to pass in, let's do it this way. Oops, that's not what I want. I want I'm going to pass it a method to call this, I'm going to pass it the code that I want it to run for this stuff that'll update this view model in here. So I'm actually going to I'm going to pass it a function to update my parks in this method for this. I'm trying to figure out a good way to explain this to you, and I'm struggling. So again, with these listeners and stuff, it's hard to get this set up here. So, and again, there's different ways to set these up. Let me show you. Let me look at the Firebase service first and how I have that set up here. So this doesn't look. So what we're going to do is do this, add this interface for a park list callback so that we can define our callback when we call list parks here and set that up correctly. Right. And then we're going to be given a callback here, and we're going to call that function with our park list for this. So let's see if I can. Try to figure out if there's a way to simplify this. So in my Firebase service, I'm going to define a little interface that is going to define an on success and an on failure. And if we succeed, I'm going to pass back a list of parks for this here. And then in fetch parks, I'm going to pass in this callback, these two methods. So basically, I'm going to pass in two methods into fetch parks in my Firebase service. So I'm going to pass in these two methods for this. And I'm going to loop through all my parks, create a list of parks there, and then I can return those via this callback. So basically your park view model will be passing a method to Firebase to say, when you are done and you have everything ready, call this method for when it is. So for this. Yeah. I will share this code with you and put it in. I don't think we're gonna get this built today. I think I can, now that I look at this, I think I can actually simplify this a little bit and drop out this interface for this. So I think I'm going to do that and post this. So Thursday we'll return here. So again, you should be saving this or committing this. Dates from Tuesday. Commit and push. Commit anyway. And push. So we'll jump back to this on Thursday and see, and then we'll try to do the Kotlin version of it. The Kotlin version actually works a little easier because again, we have some more advanced features in Kotlin for this. As far as what you have to turn in, you don't have to turn in any of this code here. You just have to answer these questions about the code here. And that's what we're doing for both the learning activity and assignment, because again, this code is rather complex and you may not get all of it to work. So your job is to see the code, try to understand it, and answer questions on it. Okay. Firebase classes are already so complicated. We didn't do bad. We got pretty far. So see you on Thursday. We get as far as I wanted, but we did okay. Got you confused. That's my goal. So, see you, Grace. Let's see. Oh, see if I don't. I don't get it. Oh, so which project is this? Yeah, demo. Right.
I didn't have time first approach, so they hello, I did it. I need my first conference. Oh, I did, yeah, I did. Yeah. Really, see what you got there. I don't know about them. Hey, guys, how much that? From now to the four. Okay, I think I work from two to two. That's about it, right? Yeah. I think about what do about sleeping. That one, sit. Think that I got headaches. And that's that. I don't see. I don't know if you know. You say, I that's the reason why we get on. So, your team, I got it about it. That is well, so it is loaded from that stuff mowing, I think. But you have to do that. No, you just have to answer the questions about. Yeah. Right, so yeah, that's why you don't have to do any of it, you can actually just watch, you know, and just answer the questions. All right. Yeah. All right. But you just have to answer the questions. That's why this Firebase stuff is going to be very complicated. You see it, but wait, how is the yes? Right. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. There are like 70 countries. More than 70. Yeah, and there were about 650 students. We'll see how far we get on Thursday. So last year we had so many issues that we really didn't get to authentication. There last time I taught the class. So the assignment is on authentication. Like it's like we haven't done any authentication yet either. So it's possible the assignment will be optional. Yeah, it'll be extra credit then. Hey. How soon can I start with this class project?
For this class? Yeah, I should, that's a good question. I should have a post. We're actually, so there are actually 3 class projects in this class.
Oh, 3.
Yeah, we'll do one in 2 weeks, I think, which will be this Kotlin Java traditional one.
So we can choose between the languages, right?
Right, yeah, so you do it in either Kotlin or Java.
And okay, and then
about your first one.
And then the first project is going to be based on what we've done before.
Well, you can choose, there'll be kind of a menu of options, you can choose if you want to do a real-time database, a SQL database like Room or the Firebase one, if you want to do authentication, stuff like that. So that'll be the first one. And then we'll spend another month working in Flutter, and then there'll be another project for Flutter. And then the last project, we'll spend 4 weeks doing this Firebase Studio, which is this AI kind of coding.
Vibe coding?
Yeah, it's all Vibe coding. So we'll spend 4 weeks trying live coding with it's all based on Firebase, so you already will know Firebase, so that'll help.
Okay.
And so that'll be your final project in that. So,
Okay.
yeah, so you can do the same project. Yeah, if you have some idea, you can do it in, sometimes I suggest it's not bad to do the same project in all 3 environments, just so
Okay.
you see that, so.
Okay. And then, so we're not gonna work.
And then you sell it, you get rich, and then you give, you name the school after me. The building, right, yeah, right,
Yeah.
so, yeah, sure.
I was wanting to know, how do I, I'm struggling with the apps at the moment, like, and with Studio, how do you, let's say, make it live, like a website, like a website you can just host?
Oh, right. Yeah. We'll talk about that. So you can just, can generate an APK file, an Android APK file and send it to people, but that you have to they have to have enabled downloadable APK files and do it. So you can do that there, but we'll actually talk more about this with Flutter with iOS and what you really want to do is, if you really want to sell it, is you want to put it on the Play stores.
Okay,
And
so,
yeah, and you've got to do that. So,
but it's like, a website, you can show.
Right.
Just like.
yeah, how would you show? Yeah, there isn't a good way to show this to people. You can't just pop up a lie. The best thing you can do is like maybe do a screen capture, and post that to your portfolio or something like that, just to show the app running. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So that's what I said. Okay.
And I want to know, how many sections do you have for this class? Online, HyFlex, and
it's high flex, which means there's an online and an in class one, and in Brightspace they're joined together.
oh, okay.
So yeah, so yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's just one class.
So I will be missing a few classes, but I will be watching your YouTube videos.
Right, that's fine. Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So just